And as I look back and I see this pattern throughout my own experiences, having lived in this space now for 20 years, trying to find success here, having no fucking idea what I'm doing. And I can't underscore that enough. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm not kidding. I never have any idea what I'm doing. Because the truth is, to succeed, to exist in this world of being an entrepreneur, it means there is, by definition, there's no instruction manual. If any of you out there are trying to do something, trying to build something, or trying to follow some prescription that somebody else defined, you failed. You have already failed. You will not succeed. You can write that down. You will not succeed.
I had no ability whatsoever to see a long-term vision in front of me. I only had to take the steps I knew I had to take and do the best that I could do at the time. While I'm a big believer in having a clear vision and where you're going, sometimes that is just not reality.
One of the very interesting and kind of counterintuitive things that I've learned about life is that if you imagine progress in life like a giant staircase, the next step is always lit. You can always see where to go next, but you can't see where to go 10 steps down the way. And a lot of times we want to know where to go 10 steps down the way. We crave it, and so we don't even take the next step because we're like, well, if I don't know where I'm going, I don't even want to take the next step. And what I found is that if you take that next step, the next one lights up. If you take the next step, the next one lights up.
Every success follows that single line, which is embracing the unknown, believing in that idea, and just stopping at nothing to find success, even though the manifestation of that success is never, ever what you'd imagined.
It's all the shit I do.
Like you said,
It's why I'm taking this meeting. It's a fucking stupid meeting for me on paper, if I'm averaging my time, but not for branding and opportunity and serendipity, like, the way the world actually works.
Right.
If the world actually worked on math, it would have been over by now.
Yes.
Right? If it worked on math, then people would have ran the algorithms and everything would be set.
Right. Yeah.
Just not real life.
Everything being played.
You know the next step mentally, right? Intellectually. You know the next level of education that you need in different areas of your life. You know what the next steps are. We just don't think about them that often.
And if there's one thing I learned about like the 500 books I read about every startup that I could find, was that there was something in common for all of them. And that was that they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know where it might go. Instagram was an app that was meant to share your location with friends, and nobody liked it. But they did like how you could post pictures on there. And Twitter started as a company called IDEO, which was like a blogging site. They didn't know what the hell they were doing, but they tripped and they found this trajectory.
I used to think that Monopoly was a good board game. Like at one point, my kids and I were so good at it, we could play it in the car without the board. We just knew where all the properties were, and we would roll the dice in our head and do the whole thing. Monopoly's not a good board game. I've come to that conclusion. But there's a good lesson here, and the lesson is this. Unless you're 4 years old, if you lose at Monopoly, I think you realize it's not personal, right? It was a game. You didn't get the rolls you needed. Maybe you made a couple strategy mistakes, but you can play again tomorrow. It's not about you. Don't have a tantrum. Don't turn the board over, and don't beat yourself up. It's just a game.
What brought me to this position of success, it was the fact that I never had an idea what I was doing. And now, instead of being scared of that, I embrace that. I hold it as close to me as I possibly can.
So what if we take that mindset, which is very adult and very mature and works for us, and apply it to what happens if your book proposal doesn't get sold, or apply it to what happens if no one responds to the comment you posted under this thing, or right? In all of these things, you didn't get a promotion? Well, that's a little bit like landing on Park Place when someone else has an apartment there. Sorry, but it's not necessarily about you. We are playing this game with 1.5, 2, 3, 4 billion other people, moving pieces around, contributing, investing, sometimes landing on other properties, figuring out what to roll next, right? If you can look at it that way, the question is, will you be better at the game or will you be worse at the game? And what we know is you will be better at the game. You will be better at the game because you can approach it with joy and you can approach it without being locked up.
And you're like, wow, yeah, I want to succeed. Let me jump in line with these sheep. You're like, wait, how come nobody's noticing me? Like, nobody's going to notice you. You got to be the one that steps out. You got to be the wolf that runs in the opposite direction. And that's what it takes. It's embracing the idea that you have to define it for yourself. if you are one of those people, if you're one of those people who was cursed with the burden of ambition, then you have to embrace what you don't know. And you have to leverage the power and the passion, because that is the only way to get there. Because the roads that I think most of you, and certainly that I am on, there is no map to follow. There's no prescription to follow. By virtue of being an entrepreneur, by virtue of having nothing but an idea that's fueled by passion, you're seeking success. By very definition, you have to define your own path. Otherwise, you're one of those sheep headed that way and nobody's going to notice you.